The African Democratic Congress has inaugurated former Senate President David Mark as its interim national chairman. Mark was appointed alongside former Minister of Interior Rauf Aregbesola, who now serves as the party's national secretary. The official handover was conducted at a coalition meeting in Abuja, which brought together members and stakeholders from various political parties.
Decided to resign so that he can pedal this canoe and get us to the villa. The endorsement that we got and which we're today going to give to distinguished Senator David Mark as interim national chairman of ADC, also with the same mandate, the approval of Governor Rauf Aregbesola as National Secretary.
Let history record that when our democracy faltered, we rose not in fear, but in faith. Let it be known today across Nigeria and beyond, the opposition is united. The platform is ADC. The time is now. The mission is clear. Rescue Nigeria, rebuild Nigeria, return power to the people.
Now to discuss this, we are joined by international journalist and policy analyst Adeniyi Kunnu. Thank you so much for joining us.
For having me. Yes, please.
All right. Now, the ADC, like many other political parties in the country, appears to retain its fair share of internal party squabbles relating to, who the authentic national chairman is and all of that. But does a name like that of David Mark put an end to such agitations in this case?
Well, do not forget that the title they gave him happens to be interim national chairman. And that, to me, reflects what they've discussed long before this time and the fact that they probably have some kind of internal arrangement before he assumed that position. But I need us to understand that no political party in Nigeria is exempt from all sorts of squabbles. At the last electoral cycle, one of the things we had as the problems of the ADC was the issue of the national chairman. But after all said and done, INEC did not nullify the position. And of course, the presidential candidate in the last general election was also Adeniyi Kunnu. So perhaps there are certain conditions INEC set for the party which has been fulfilled, because I know that if there had been certain issues as we have in other parties, we would not have had such moves at the moment. And do not forget, the ADC as a party of choice came as shock to very many people, considering the fact that the political party has been tinkering with the ADA issue, only for them to choose the ADC. But to be fair on the ADC, it has to be said that for the past 16 years thereabouts, the ADC has actually repeatedly come between first and fourth position. And even in the last election, the ADC was between the first and seventh position. So if we understood the consistency in the position the party held, perhaps certain things have been properly researched, and those who have chosen the party have come to the realization of how important the party is in the scheme of politicking in Nigeria. As such, they made that decision.
Now, there's quite a number of heavyweights in this coalition. We're talking former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. We're talking former Governor and Minister El Rufai. Given that incumbency, of course, we know incumbency matters in Nigeria, but what real impact can these names pull on the electoral outcomes of 2027?
All right, let me identify the key figures there. Let's look at the former Senate President, David Mark.
Yes.
If you're looking at North Central, to a great extent, David Mark happens to be a highly respected person. If you look at the southwestern part of Nigeria, you must agree with me that Rauf Aregbesola, who, of course, had enjoyed certain privileges in Lagos and also understands certain things as far as southwest politics is concerned, man, I put his weight. Then I think that you should understand that when somebody has held a national position, amongst many other things, that person has an extent of clout to be able to deal with issues such as we're having, especially the expected unveiling. Don't forget, Nasir El Rufai, who happens to be the founding member, of course, of the APC, happens to be there. although no position has been announced, but you're talking about somebody who comes from a state that has been considered a political capital of the North. Don't forget, when any insect, no matter how little bites you, it is likely going to shake you. I know that there's a power of incumbency, but I also must remind you that in 2015, the power of incumbency did not work for former President Goodluck Jonathan, that we saw the APC eventually emerge as a party at the center in power. And do not also forget that there's always a particular rule book and a guideline that we are yet to see. So by February of next year, when INEC unveils their timetable, we begin to see the strategies that these people have for them to take part. So when you're talking about a heavyweight within the Northwest, like Nasir El-Rufai, although he has his limitations, but you don't look away from the capacity he has as far as cardinal politics is concerned. You look at David Mark, former Senate president, who has made alliances, especially into the activities of politicians in the North, and of course from the North Central where he comes from. So when we pull these capacities together, I think the ruling party need to be cautious of what perhaps they have to contend with in the coming election.
So would you say now, because you just mentioned that the power of incumbency didn't really work in 2015, would you say the ADC has what it takes to do what the APC did in 2015?
Okay, let me give you a picture. The ADC is a party that's been existing for the past 18 years, thereabouts. The APC is a party that's been existing for about 13 years. Now, if you compare the fact that a party that has been existing for that period of time will take power, I'm talking about 13 years. The APC was formed in 2014, and the APC assumes power in 2015. The ADC has already been existing soon after the Fourth Republic in the country. So that tells you that that's it. Then another thing that could actually make people reason in the direction of the ADC, because it's a party that have taken time to study its internal dynamics, is that it has a foothold in the entire geopolitical zone of Nigeria. And that's another significant conversation around politics. If you also check the history of politicking in this country, the ADC has consistently come between first and fifth position. So there has to be something the party understands about politicking in the most populous black nation in the country, and to have maintained such consistency in performance over time, there has to be lots of things that perhaps have been considered to have allowed that party be the party of choice. So while people understand that you cannot oftentimes take away the power of incumbency, if you look at the United States of America, the power of incumbency did not help the Democratic Party at last year's election that eventually saw President Donald Trump emerge as the president of America. And if you check some other countries of the world, you find out that it is not in all instances that the power of incumbency actually helps a political party, because people's disaffection accounts for lots of things that happen in the vote. There are many other things that could account for a person who sits in power losing an election. More or less like some people predicting that maybe in the next election cycle in America, President Donald Trump is going to win the next election. The same thing in Nigeria, the most populous black nation in the country. So you have to understand that oftentimes we take away the catalyst in election, and that has to do with the electorate. The electorate is always the catalyst in every election, and I do not think we should just push away the capacities of, perhaps the shock that may await many when we're talking about the ADC. So I think that people should respect every party that politicians that are heavyweight could consider as their party of choice in the next election. But ultimately, it's the consciences and the conscientization of the electorate about the people being the catalyst in every election cycle.
Now, I know one thing a lot of people will be looking forward to is the fact that who will be the presidential candidate for the ADC. Now, we know that Vice President or former Vice President Atiku is one person who has been consistent when it comes to running for, office of being the president of Nigeria. One would wonder, do you think if for some reason do you think it would be acceptable by him if for some reason he's not picked as the presidential candidate for the ADC?
I'd like you to understand that Atiku Abubakar, in my candid estimation, may not be the presidential candidate of the ADC in the coming election. Do not forget that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar have moved from one political party to the other, which to me has actually affected, in my candid estimation, the kind of political ideology that he stands for. And you cannot take away the Gen Zs from the political evolution happening in Nigeria, ditto many other persons that are politically relevant in the country. And I think it is time for people to begin to consider, and I think that the ADC perhaps are thinking in that direction, where they're thinking about somebody that is not too far from their generation and somebody that is not too close to them. So we're looking for a mixture of experience and age that is not too far. Somebody that understands the dynamics of the current time and somebody that also understands the period before them. So whilst I may not be perfectly correct in saying that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar may be the candidate of choice for the ADC, but if we look at the issues that have happened in the past 16 years, and now Atiku has moved from one party to the other, I do not think that the ADC may want to risk having Atiku whose political ideologies are not very consistent and who doesn't even live in the country so much as to have him, connect with the people. Let me do a retrospective analysis of the elections we had in 2023 in Nigeria, where it seemed to me that Peter Obi's ideology reverberated with a lot of young people who are about 60% of the population in Nigeria. If you look at that part of Peter Obi where a lot of his ideologies resonated with many young persons in Nigeria, and you look at how people felt they needed some kind of new sigh or new wave of commitment from somebody, I guess they may look in that direction. Although Peter Obi has been essentially silent, and maybe it's a surprise package that the parties are holding together and they want to unleash on the Nigerian people. But I have to be candid with you that if Peter Obi eventually becomes the choice of the ADC, then the PDP is in deep waters. As much as it may seem it's not possible, I think that there's a lot of things that we're looking up to, or there are lots of things that we're giving consideration to later that we have to keep our fingers closely knit upon. So when we're looking at the forthcoming election, I need to say that Atiku may not actually be, but if Atiku eventually becomes that, then the ADC has to work 4 times more to be able to sell the ideology of man that has been politically inconsistent, especially when it comes to vying for the position of the presidency. But if we now come to the aspect of Peter Obi, because people have not experienced so much of him at the national level, they perhaps could give him the opportunity. And let me say that whilst every politician is not perfect, and also whilst they've been having conversation about Peter Obi just spending one time in office, I still do not believe anybody who says that. But I think that if I do a comparative analysis of Peter Obi as perhaps the eventual candidate of the ADC, and I look or put him side by side Atiku Abubakar, I think it may be a better sell. But we still do not know where the ADC is headed. For instance, we'll be hearing conversation about Rabi Musa Pokonso coming to the APC so that at least we can capture the state that appears to be in terms of numbers, the second or the state that is equal in terms of the electorate like Lagos State. Let us be reminded that Rabi Musa Pokonso is also a very formidable figure as far as Northwest politics is concerned. And do not forget, you're talking about Kano State where you have 44 local government. That is no joke for anybody. And that's the reason you cannot take that away. As a matter of fact, in the last elections held in Nigeria in 2023, Lagos and Kano, both states have the highest number, according to INEC records, the number of electorates across the country. So you're looking at how people perhaps will intend to want to shake the grounds as far as it's concerned. Then let me also put on record there that Peter Obi at the presidential election won Lagos. So you cannot push away the factors that are realistic as far as the politicking is concerned. So if you check Atiku and where he stands, the Northwest, I believe, will always want to go in his direction. But I do not think Atiku has so much love and deep affection among the northwestern part of the country. If you come to the north central part of the country, you cannot take away the strategy of the ADC in choosing former Senate President David Mark as the person to hold sway for them. So when you look at how things have been divided, then if you go to, for instance, the south part of the country, that's another kettle of fish altogether.
All right, Adeniyi, before we let you go, let me just ask this question, because you mentioned something about where ADC is headed. If we go back to 2015, it looked like there was a coalition. I'm talking about how the APC was birthed now. It looked like there was a coalition of people who just wanted the PDP out. And we could see that months after, even after APC had, even after APC became the ruling party, we saw that they still had some issues here and there. Do you think ADC right now has members who actually have the same ideologies aside just taking Tinubu out of office?
Well, I feel that one of the things anybody does, particularly if you're a political party, is to remove the incumbent from office. I believe that many people who have access to the internet can access the ADC and the PDP online and get to know the basic indicators or the basic things that this party stands for. But I need to make this also very lucid here, that if you listen carefully to the conversation they had at the Musi Yar'Adua Center today, it was about getting the APC out of power. Perhaps that is the primary thing. My father used to tell me that one thing done well, one thing at a time, and that's done well. Don't forget that the sole purpose of the APC in 2015 was also to remove the PDP from office. And after they told us all of the things that were not truthful, as far as the manifesto of the party was concerned, perhaps maybe that is the same ideology that the ADC had. The ADC has told you, and we heard from what former Senate President David Mark said, that we want to remove the APC from office, particularly to take Nigerians out of the intensive care unit that they have found themselves. So perhaps the first mission is take them out of office, let us take Nigeria out of intensive care unit, then we can think about how to move this ship forward. That is probably what is being talked about now.
All right, thank you so much, Adeniyi, for joining us, and we hope you join us again some other time to have conversations like this.